Hi, I'm Sarah, and you're watching CVN, Clear Vision Networks. This content is created for educational and informational purposes, presenting a balanced and research based perspective on economic systems. Right now, millions of Americans are asking a question that feels simple, but turns out to be anything but. Does the president actually control the economy, or is that belief missing a much larger reality? It's a question rooted in everyday experience. People feel the economy constantly at the grocery store, at the gas pump, in rent payments, mortgage rates, job opportunities, and the cost of borrowing. So it makes sense that many connect those experiences directly to political leadership. Election cycles reinforce that idea. Campaigns focus heavily on economic promises. Speeches highlight growth, jobs, and prices. And over time, a powerful narrative takes hold that one individual at the top can steer the entire system. But when you step back and examine the structure behind the headlines, a more complex picture begins to emerge. Because the US economy is not a machine with a single control panel, it is a vast, interconnected system influenced by policy, institutions, global events, business decisions, and human behavior. And while the president plays a role, that role exists within a framework that limits direct control. To understand this, we have to look beneath the surface. There's a familiar image many people carry: a president behind closed doors, pulling economic levers, raising wages, lowering prices, guiding markets toward prosperity. It's a compelling idea because it offers clarity, it suggests control, it implies that outcomes can be directed with intention and speed. But economists and decades of historical data suggest something different. The economy behaves less like a machine and more like a living system. It moves slowly at times, reacts unpredictably at others, and responds to forces that no single leader can fully command. And that brings us to the first major piece of the puzzle: monetary policy. Monetary policy focuses on the supply and cost of money, primarily through interest rates. When inflation rises, borrowing costs may increase. When economic activity slows, those costs may be reduced to encourage spending and investment. These decisions have real consequences. Higher interest rates can make mortgages more expensive, increase credit card payments, and slow business expansion. Lower rates can stimulate borrowing, spending, and hiring. But here's the key detail that often gets overlooked: the president does not directly control monetary policy. That responsibility belongs to the Federal Reserve, an independent central bank designed to operate outside of day to day political influence. Its independence is intentional. It allows decisions to be based on economic data rather than political timelines. As of early 2026, interest rates remain elevated compared to the previous decade, reflecting ongoing efforts to manage inflation while maintaining employment stability. Policymakers have emphasized caution, signaling that decisions will depend on incoming data rather than external pressure. This independence creates a unique dynamic. Some of the most powerful short term economic decisions, those that directly affect borrowing costs and financial conditions, are intentionally removed from presidential control. That doesn't mean presidents have no influence. They appoint key officials, including members of the Federal Reserve's leadership. These appointments can shape long term direction, but once in place, those officials operate within an institutional framework that limits political interference. So, if monetary policy operates independently, what about fiscal policy? This is where the president's role becomes more visible, but still not absolute. Fiscal policy involves government spending and taxation. It influences infrastructure, social programs, defense budgets, and economic stimulus measures. These decisions can have a direct impact on growth, employment, and demand. But under the US Constitution, the power of the purse belongs to Congress. That means the president can propose policies, outline priorities, and advocate for legislation. But Congress must debate, modify, and approve those proposals before they become law. In practical terms, this creates a system of shared power. And when political divisions exist, which they often do, major economic initiatives can slow down, change shape, or stall entirely. This balance is not a flaw. It is a feature of the system, designed to prevent concentrated control. But it also means that economic outcomes are rarely the result of a single decision or a single leader. Now expand the view even further. Even if the president and Congress are aligned, the economy still operates within a global environment. The United States is deeply connected to international markets. Supply chains stretch across continents. Energy prices are influenced by global production and geopolitical events. Technological advancements spread rapidly across borders. Demand shifts in one region can ripple through others. These global forces can influence inflation, employment, and growth, sometimes faster than domestic policy can respond. For example, changes in energy prices can quickly affect transportation costs, manufacturing expenses, and consumer prices. Disruptions in global supply chains can lead to shortages or delays, pushing prices higher. And shifts in international demand can impact exports, production, and jobs. None of these forces are fully controlled by any one government. Think of the economy like a massive ship moving through open water. Leadership can guide direction, but the size of the vessel means changes take time. And external conditions, waves, currents, storms, can influence the journey in ways that are difficult to predict. Now bring the focus closer to home. Within the United States, state governments also play a significant role. Each state sets its own policies on taxation, labor laws, business regulation, and public services. These decisions shape local economies, influence job markets, and affect business activity. When combined, these state level actions contribute to the national economic picture, but they operate independently of federal control, which means the economy is shaped by layers of decision making federal, state, and global, all interacting simultaneously. So, where does presidential influence matter most? History suggests that it becomes most visible during periods of crisis. In moments of economic instability, whether financial downturns, sudden disruptions, or sharp declines in activity, coordinated action can play an important role in stabilization. Large scale spending programs, emergency measures, and policy responses can help support markets, maintain liquidity, and restore confidence. But even in these moments, outcomes are not immediate. Policies take time to implement, their effects take time to appear, and the results often depend on conditions beyond anyone's control. Which brings us to another dimension of the economy, one that is often underestimated: human behavior. Consumer confidence, business expectations, and investor sentiment are not always visible on balance sheets or policy documents, but they have real consequences. When people feel optimistic about the future, they are more likely to spend, invest, and take risks. When uncertainty rises, spending slows, investments are delayed, and caution increases. Political events can influence these perceptions. Elections, policy announcements, and leadership changes can shape expectations, sometimes before any actual policy takes effect. In this way, belief itself becomes a factor in economic outcomes. If enough people expect improvement, they may act in ways that support growth. If uncertainty dominates, behavior can shift in the opposite direction. It's a subtle dynamic, but a powerful one, because the economy is not just driven by numbers, it is driven by people. Looking at recent trends from 2025 into early 2026, this complexity becomes even clearer. Inflation has moderated compared to previous peaks, but remains sensitive to factors like energy markets and global supply conditions. Interest rates continue to influence housing affordability, borrowing costs, and business investment decisions. The labor market has shown resilience in some sectors, with steady job creation, while other areas continue adjusting to technological change and global competition. Economic growth has slowed in certain periods, reflecting the balance between controlling inflation and maintaining expansion. These mixed signals highlight an important point. The economy does not move in a straight line. It evolves, it adjusts, it reacts. And throughout all of this, public perception continues to connect economic outcomes closely to political leadership. But as we've explored, that connection is more nuanced than it appears. Which brings us to a critical conclusion. The president's influence on the economy is real, but it is limited, indirect, and often delayed. A president can set priorities, propose policies, influence long term direction, respond during crises, but they cannot single handedly control outcomes. And understanding that distinction matters more than ever. Because expectations shape decisions. When people believe that one individual can immediately fix complex economic challenges, expectations rise quickly. And when results take time, as they almost always do, disappointment can follow. But when we recognize the broader system, the picture becomes clearer. The economy is a network, dynamic, interconnected, and influenced by multiple forces at once. Policy matters, institutions matter, global events matter, and human behavior matters, all at the same time. That perspective doesn't simplify the story, but it does make it more accurate. Let's take a moment to reflect on how people are responding. Some say, every election feels like it decides my paycheck. Others point out, leaders make promises, but prices don't always follow. And some take a broader view. It's not just one person, it's the entire system. These perspectives reveal something important. There is often a gap between perception and reality. And closing that gap is essential for understanding how economic decisions truly work. So when we ask, who controls the US economy? The answer is not a single name or institution. It is a system shaped by policy decisions, market forces, global conditions, and the collective actions of millions of individuals. The president plays a role within that system, but not the role many imagine. And as the world becomes more interconnected, that distinction becomes increasingly important. Because in a complex system, understanding how things actually work is more valuable than ever. If you found this investigation insightful, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Because in a world driven by headlines, understanding the system behind them is what truly makes the difference. What do you think? Does leadership shape the economy, or is it the system as a whole? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching.